This is Carl Douglas with the number one smash hit, Kung Fu Fighting.
Yeah, man.
That was actually, that was in Lovers Rock on Sunday.
Part of the Small Axe series.
Part of the Small
by
Axe series.
Steve McQueen.
I have to say, much as I love that song, much as I love that scene, I have to say, I'm sure that was 1974.
Yeah,
not...
you could be right. I felt there's a few tunes that were possibly a little bit out of whack as far as timing was concerned. But how?
What? Yeah, I know.
No, you're on. You're on.
What's going on? Anyway,
turn yourself
on. When is Lovers Rock set? In the 80s?
81.
Yeah, it should be, because Lovers Rock movement is from the late 70s.
Yeah,
like
79 was when
79 when Janet Kay
won
out.
the award.
Silly Game.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yes, excellent.
Oh, brilliant. We've got a few people coming in on Zoom. Listen, our fan base this week has gone mental. Thank you, guys and girls out there, for tuning into Portobello Radio and keeping it locked. Another glorious week of spectacular statistics on our radar. Got to thank the most amazing, loads of people to thank, in fact. Saskia from Malta. She bought a t-shirt off us earlier on, which was absolutely fantastic. Love her. Welcome all you guys out in Malta, and thank you for keeping it locked to portobelloradio.com. Earlier on today, I had a fabulous bloke calling. I think it's in Germany. Could be France, could be Germany. He's in the Rhine. Lovely stuff. Thanks for the prompt reply. Love Portobello Radio. Also, the sets that you guys do as well, of course, together with Worldwide FM. You're on my presets, enabling me to enjoy London from the North Rhine to Westphalian countryside.
Oh, so, the Westphalia.
Yeah, man.
I lived in the Westphalia.
Did you? Okay,
80s,
so you know where it is. That's in Germany, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, man. So welcome aboard, all our lovely German cousins. And indeed, all our cousins from all over Europe and all over the world. It's a global community. There is so much going on Portobello Radio.
We love our cousins, wherever they come from.
Alice Clark.
We have a jam-packed show. It's got a slightly literary tip today. We have, coming up in a minute, we have Margaret Busby, the publishing legend, for whom, to me, I have her to thank for introducing me to Chester Himes, one of, well, go and check him out, one of the great writers of all time. We have Yasmin Oliver, who did Juvet, the play at Theatre 5.
Juvet or Juvet.
We're not going through this again.
I love it.
When will he pronounce Juvet correctly?
I don't know. When we take him over to Paris for a day out, and then he'll probably be able to get the hang of that.
No, we need to take him to Trinidad and school him properly.
I look forward to that.
Can't do that in a day. Not yet. Anyway.
Take me to Trinidad Online 2021.
Good idea. Brilliant idea.
We also have the SPID ambassadors, and they, like Steve McQueen, have done a play about Mangrove 9. It's from a completely different angle. Greg, you were engineering that a little bit today.
Wasn't I? Yeah. Cutting it up. It was brilliant. Absolutely superb. I love it. Absolutely love it. There's some great little nuances to the storyline. It isn't, true to history, but it's a fantastic play. It's really good fun. Really good fun.
Great artistic license.
Absolutely.
So it's based on.
Yeah, absolutely. It involves the story, but obviously, as with all of these things, anything can go on in the background while the main story's happening, and that's what they've really concentrated on, is the nuances of the time. It's very clever. Very clever
we may have Marco Bizzari from Unit 1, and we definitely also have Alex and Barbara from Save Wormwood Scrubs to tell us about the gorilla bulb planting from last week.
Rude.
We're going to come to Margaret in a second, but Chester Himes makes me think of Isaac Hayes, and here is Isaac Hayes doing Walk On By.
I can feel it in you. Do you feel it? Do you feel it too? Do you feel it? Do you feel it too? Heart in my hands, I take a breath and begin to reveal just how I feel. Never before in my whole life has anyone had this impact on me. Nervously, I look into your eyes, wondering what the answer will be. Then you take me into your arms and you kiss me passionately. I can feel it. I can feel it in you. I can feel it. I can feel it in you. I know you're feeling it. Yes, you're feeling it. I know you're feeling it. I know you're feeling it. Oh, I know you're feeling it. Yes, you're feeling it. I know you're feeling it. I know you're feeling it. Oh, I know you're feeling it. Yes, you're feeling it. I know you're feeling it. I know you're feeling it. Oh, I know you're feeling it. Yes, you're feeling it. I know you're feeling it. I know you're feeling it. I can feel it. I can feel it in you. I can feel it. I can feel it in you. Yes, you feel it. Yes, you feel.
I'm delighted to say we have with us Margaret Busby. Margaret was the, I think if I'm right in saying, Margaret, hi there, how are you doing?
The youngest and first.
The youngest publisher, the youngest person ever to start a publishing house in the UK.
Well,
And the first black woman as well.
Anyway, that's what it said in The Guardian, which I'm sure means it's absolutely true. Margaret, if I may start, you started a publishing company called Alison Busby in, I think, 71.
no, before that. Before I was long before I was born.
Back in the day, when you published a guy called Chester Himes, who was a kind of unknown thriller writer, author from New York. My favorite story about Chester Himes is he was in jail in I think Louisiana or something, and he saw a man killed in an argument over whether Paris was in France or France was in Paris. How did you become a publisher at such an early age during the 60s in those what we like to think of as less enlightened times?
Swinging 60s you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was at university, actually, in the 60s. I was at university. I went when I was 17, so I was pretty young. But I was always interested in, writing and literature and books and poetry. In fact, I was writing poetry and I was working on my college literary magazine. I was at Bedford College in London, which was then in Regent's Park.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend who was having a party, and she was having a party because she was having her first novel published. And it was also an engagement party, I think, or she was about to get married. And so I was invited from her side, and from her fiance's side, he invited people he was at college with, including this guy called Clive Allison. And so I was introduced to him because he was also doing things to do with poetry at his university. And we were talking about what you're going to do when you graduate. I said, well, I thought we might try publishing. He said, so did I. Let's start a publishing company.
Wow.
So that's how it started.
What was the first book you published?
Sorry?
What was the first book you published?
We started actually with 3 cheap paperback poetry books because we were both interested in poetry and we thought it was being published in expensive hardbacks that people like us, young people, couldn't afford. So we said, we'll do it in cheap paperbacks. So we did 5 bob paperbacks and we had 15,000 copies, no distribution. So we were just stopping people in the street saying, you want to buy a book? So that's how we started. And those were published. If I tell you, you'll know how old I am. No, I was really.
But I mean, that in a funny sort of way, it sounds not unlike Chris Blackwell turning up round at record shops with a boot full of Jamaican imports and flogging them individually. If this was before the days of punk and before the days of DIY, so in many ways it was quite a progressive step just to say we'll do it on our own.
Well, I think when you're that young, and we're talking, I left university when I was 20, so you haven't even come of age. You just got lots of ideals. You don't know how the world goes. You've never had a proper job. You haven't got any money, so you just do what you want to do, and you do your best and you try hard, and sometimes it works. And in fact, that's the way we approached it. We decided what we wanted to do, and we did it. Whether or not it was the norm, we decided that's what we wanted to do. And in fact, the very first novel we published was a novel by an African American called Sam Greenlee that had been turned down by maybe 40 publishers on both sides of the Atlantic. But a friend of mine, I actually got married. I was married young to a jazz musician. We lived in Notting Hill, and a friend of his bumped into this African American on the Greek island and said, "I know somebody who started a publishing company," because Sam couldn't find a publisher. And so, that became our first full-time novel, and that was in 1969. And again, we didn't know the conventions, so we somehow persuaded the Observer to use extracts in their magazine, and we went on from there.
Wow. You know what? It's possible, I think, that my father was the editor of the Observer magazine at that point.
Who was that?
He's called John Thompson.
Well, who knows?
Yeah. You went on to publish people like James Baldwin, Toni Morrison.
I didn't publish them. I knew them, but I didn't publish them.
Oh, right. I do apologize. You made quite an imprint in terms of republishing some of the authors who'd been forgotten, who were brand new to an English audience.
Yeah, I mean, we published writers who were new. We also rescued writers who'd gone out of print. For example, C.L.R. James had been long out of print, most of his books, and we started republishing. I knew C.L.R. because my father had actually been at school with him in Trinidad, and so he was like a family friend. So I was, quite surprised to find that he wasn't in print. So we kind of started republishing a lot of his work. George Lamming, a lot of people who had kind of dropped out of view, we brought back into print, and that was part of what we wanted to do. We wanted to publish things and tell people about things that we were interested in, and there were, it's a mixture of things. We were just, in fact, I always repeat this. Somebody once said something to me that I found really quite enlightening. They said, you never knew what Alison Busby was going to publish next, but you knew it was going to be interesting. So, it might be a book on rats, it might be, a novel, it might be a children's book, it might be a political book. We just went with what we thought we'd like to tell other people to read, and that's how it went.
So, can you hear me, Alison?
Yeah, I can hear you, Margaret.
Sorry, I'm saying Alison.
I answer to anything. Hey,
that's
you.
Okay. So, I'm sorry about that. But so the role that you had, how has it played into sort of diversifying publishing? Because I think it's interesting that you said you actually published a diverse range of literature, but did it have an impact, or were you also looking to impact that kind of diversifying the publishing field?
No, when I started, it's only in retrospect you look at things and say, well, that might have been, I might have been the first Black woman published or whatever. But as you're doing it, you're just doing it. You're not thinking, especially when you're so young. So some of the things we were publishing were as it happened, diversifying the canon, if you like, but it wasn't necessarily something we were aware of. In fact, some of the things that I've heard of in retrospect, I mean, for example, I met, just a few years ago, a woman, I think she was originally South African, because she told me she'd been working in a library in South Africa, and all the Alison and Busby books were banned.
Wow.
And that wasn't necessarily because of what was in them, but it was because it was a multicultural, multiracial workforce. So, that was the apartheid era.
I suppose I'm thinking of all the because obviously we both know Khadija, and you were in Khadija George or Sese, and she's actually doing work around looking at Black publishing houses. So there's a whole movement like Bogle Lobature and various others who've been involved. I mean, were you part of any kind of movement, or did you become part of that around this kind of?
No, I wouldn't call it a movement. I mean, we were all friends. I mean, John LaRose started in 1966. I started in 1967. John LaRose of New Beacon. Jessica Huntley of Bogle Lobature started in 1969. But actually, John and Jessica were like big people. They were, I was straight out, I wasn't even of age. And in fact, somebody once told me that Bogle Lobature, when they started, somebody said, well, if those young things can do it, so can we. So I think a lot of people thought, well, it must be possible if two, clueless young things like Alison and Busby can do it. No, so we were all friends, and we were all involved with things, and I remained friends with Jessica until her death, and I would help out if she needed it, and vice versa. And something like the International Book Fair of Radical Black and Third World Books, which ran from the early 80s, 1982 onwards, was something that involved us all. And not only New Beacon and Alison Busby and Bogle Lobature, but a lot of other people who came along afterwards, whether it was, I don't know, Black Ink or Karnak House or Career Press, or there were quite a few small Black outfits that were kind of doing important things and publishing books that other publishers were not publishing. And I think that's probably still the case. There are lots of things that could have been published years ago, which suddenly this year people that I think are now discovering. Everybody is wanting to have their say because of the whole impact that the Black Lives Matter movement has made. And so publishers who probably had not thought of it before are now thinking maybe they should look at some Black writers. So it is changing, but it's something that could have happened much faster over the past decades.
Alice, now you got me.
Yeah, sorry, it's because of the Alison and Busby.
Margaret, do you think if you and Clive were 20 now, would it still be possible to create such a fabulous publishing company as you did in today's environment?
I think it's not to do with the fact that we did it then. I think what's it to do with the fact that we were young and we didn't know what we were meant to do, and we didn't know what the conventions were. We just had ideals and we went for it. And I think just as we did it then, somebody of the same age now can do something that isn't necessarily considered the traditional way of doing things. And I think in certain ways, publishing is more accessible if you're thinking of publishing in terms of making public, because the internet is there. People can express themselves on the internet. Things can be done that way. So I don't think it's become any more difficult now. I think in many ways it may be easier to disseminate information because you don't actually have to go out on the street and sell a book. You can put it online and somebody knows about whatever it is you're trying to tell them.
That was one of the things I was thinking when Piers asked that question was, what about the impact of self-publishing? How has that affected publishing generally, or has it had an impact, or is it just sort of added to it, to the breadth of material available, do you think?
Well, self-publishing is another option. It's not it's better or worse. Sometimes people want to publish for vanity. I mean, it used to be called in the old days vanity press, vanity publishing. Definitely. People publish their own work. But I think if that's what people want to do, then it's their choice. But the traditional way of publishing is something that is still open to people to pursue. And I think that what I have always wanted to see happen is a greater diversity within the publishing workforce. So it's not just that there's diversity in what is being produced and the writers who are being taken on, but the people who are actually making the decisions, the editors, the people in the meeting room saying, shall we take this on? So it has to come from all sides, that impulse to sort of diversify the industry. Otherwise, it becomes them and us, The writers are black and the people who choose the writers are not.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that kind of segments into the Booker Prize sort of situation.
You've just.
We saw you on TV the other day, basically.
I mean, you just read unbelievable number of books over the course of the last 12 months,
and we saw you announce the winner.
You must have a very good idea of the state of publishing at the moment. I mean, I'm not such a big novel reader. My wife consumes them, and she seems to be absolutely delighted with the stream of amazing books that's coming her way at the moment. Would you say the same?
Sorry, can you say? Would I say what?
You just read 300 or 400 books. Would you say that the options, for the book consumer, the reader, whatever you want to call them, would you say they're as healthy as ever?
Well, I think it's healthy as ever. I'm not sure what you're comparing it with. I think there is always room for innovation, and as I said, if the people who are on the publishing side are more diverse, if you like, then there will be a greater possibility that the books being produced have that range. And it's not necessarily about preferential treatment in this direction or that. It's just making the whole literary world richer, because I like spinach, but I don't only want to eat spinach, I want to eat chocolates as well. So it's not that you can't read a certain sort of book that's good for you and that you enjoy to the exclusion of other sorts of books. So I think yes, it's difficult for publishers under lockdown. It's difficult for writers under lockdown because bookshops are shut and you can't necessarily get that same traffic to people going to buy books. But I think there is still a lot of good publishing going on, and not only from the large companies. And there's a divide, if you like, between the large conglomerates and the independents, who tend to be smaller and therefore have less money. And they're the ones who quite often are doing the most interesting sorts of publishing. And I'm not necessarily talking about whether they're black or white. It's just the commitment of a small independent publisher is quite often greater than a large conglomerate, because there are not so many layers of decision making. You've got to go for an upper level to get some permission to publish a certain book, or so it's to me the life of publishing, the sort of future of publishing is in good hands, so long as there are independents able to pursue what they believe good publishing should be.
Yeah, I mean, you make your own contribution, don't you, with Daughters of Africa and New Daughters of Africa, in which you spotlight new writers. Mm-hmm. How's that been received?
Well, as you said, Daughters of Africa was the first anthology I published in 1992. And that had more than 200 writers in it of women of African descent. Some of them were well known, so there were the people that you might have expected, like Toni Morrison and Maya Angelou and Alice Walker. But there were also new writers, and it was a historical anthology in that it went back to ancient Egypt and it came up to the present day. And then last year, I produced New Daughters of Africa, which again, it was completely different set of contributors, but again had more than 200 women contributors from the African diaspora, again going back to the 18th century and up to people born in the 1990s. So it was trying to show the range of creativity there was in that demographic, so that it wasn't even trying to say this is all you have to read from Black women writers or women of African descent. It was just saying, here is a taste, because there are so many. And one of the things that I've always found a bit disturbing is the way that in the past, it's changing now, in the past, one writer of color was meant to sort of be enough.
Yes.
You couldn't have too many. In fact, one of the pieces in New Daughters of Africa is by a writer called Leslie Locker, who talked about her publisher actually saying about one of her books that she shouldn't have too many African characters in it, no more than 3, sort of thing. You don't want. And I remember the days when, in a newspaper you wouldn't have too many photographs of Black people. I mean, in fact, I used to collect cuttings of every publication, magazine, or newspaper that had any Black people in it, because it was so rare. But now, every other page I'd be cutting out, because, there is much more awareness that you have to be including Black and other groups of people in the narrative.
Well, I suppose that's a reflection of society, because when I first came here in 77, I remember anytime I saw a Black person on TV, I literally would, as a child, rush to look, there's a Black, like reading the news or in a children's program. And it was just such a big thing. And my family, of course, we were all like kind of drawn to the TV. So it's part of the zeitgeist, really, of where we're at now.
That's what we all did. That's what we all did back in the day, because it was just so rare to see any Black people on television. So certainly that is changing, and that has changed. Although I've been reading about this strange row that's been going on about Sainsbury's and their Christmas ad, which I can't quite.
Very peculiar.
I'm very sorry, so that one's passed me by.
Oh, well, we'll have a talk about it later, Piers. But
Margaret, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for all the work you've published over the years.
Yes, and thank you also for supporting the publisher, Ishmael's book on Carnival that came out a few years ago that he launched at the Tabernacle, because I know you did the foreword and you were there. And again, that, that's that contribution, because obviously we're Portobello Radio and we're all about the Portobello area. And obviously Carnival is so close to our heart, and we promote it.
I love the area. I used to spend so much time in that area.
So we feel you're part of us.
Yeah. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
We hope to see you again soon.
Yes, indeed.
So. Take care.
Thank you, Margaret, so much. Bye.
Bye.
That was Margaret Busby, the publishing icon.
Yep.
Publishing legend. Hey. We have Yasmin Oliver getting ready to talk to us. In between time, we're going to have a quick hit of Tanya Stevens.
Yes, I've schooled him well. Schooled him well, listeners. Schooled him well.
This goes out to all the big pharma pirates and all the political pirates. It's Gleam alongside the Gary Nestor Pine.
Yes, sir.
Big pharma pirates murdering us with kindness. People are just your brightness. Who make it get widespread? Political pirates can't even follow their own guidance. People are just your brightness. Who you gonna call when the line's silent? Hello? Financial giants buy up an alliance with lords and write laws of compliance. Tyrants for hire, privately acquire a proportion of the poor that supported them. Library of liars, lifetime suppliers. Get poor and retire all at your expense. Sick and tired of their tripwires. Oh, the cycle of crisis tortures them. Big pharma pirates murdering us with kindness. But people are just your brightness. who make it get widespread. Political pirates can't even follow their guidance. People are just your brightness. Who you gonna call when the line's gone dead?
Hey, we got to conquer them all. We got to trample them down. A wicked man must fall. Run them out of the town. We're not gonna take the chat. Tell them to deal with that. And we're not gonna take no check in their political mess.
Big pharma pirates murdering us with kindness. People are just your brightness. Who make it get widespread? Political pirates can't even follow their own guidance. People are just your brightness. Who you gonna call when the line's silent?
It's not me,
Who we thank for queues at the food bank?
I don't know.
Who do we thank for rescuing huge banks?
I really don't
Who
know.
do we thank for the brand new jabs?
I said I really don't know.
Who do we thank for the breakout in Wuhan? I hope it's all gone to plan. Big pharma pirates murdering us with kindness. People are just your brightness. Who make it get widespread? Political pirates can't even follow their own guidance. People are just your brightness. Who you gonna call when the line's gone dead?
It's not me.
Anyone? Lionel?
Nobody not did it, man. You expecting nobody to come see you? Oh, in my pilot.
It's that tune.
That's a woman's song.
Yeah. We are delighted to have another fabulous literary guest, Yasmin Oliver. Yasmin, hi. Can you hear us?
Everyone.
Hey, how are you doing? Now, we first got in touch with you because you wrote a play which has been incredibly well received. Won the, I think, James Tate Award, is it? Last year, called Juve, like duvet, but with a J, which is all about carnival.
And Piers loves carnival.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Good.
I did notice that you'd written that when you were in Brooklyn, and it's actually the initial impetus was the Labor Day Carnival in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Juve, which you did at Theatre 503.
Yes, I can. So I studied, I did an internship in New York for a year, and I worked at the New York Theatre Workshop. And it basically meant just being moved to New York, and everybody kind of set me up and said that, you know, New York is just like London, which it absolutely wasn't. And I remember when I arrived, I felt really far from home and like out of place. And it was the night before their Labor Day parade, which is their equivalent to Carnival.
It's like September, the first weekend in September, isn't it?
Exactly. And I remember being in my house and hearing the music, hearing soca music and being like, okay, cool, I found home. Like, at least this is a signifier of home for me. And then when I went out to explore, I had a great time. But years later, I learned of a woman called Tiara Poyal who had been shot and killed for declining the advances of a man at Juve celebration. So
at that very carnival.
Yeah, pardon?
At that very Juve.
Not at that one. It was at the year following.
Right.
But it got me thinking a lot about carnival as a space that I absolutely love and feels vital to me in terms of like laying claim to my heritage, but also about the role that women play in carnival and them pioneering carnival and being so innovative, but also how we're kind of treated in those spaces. So I kind of took that really horrible, scary impetus and kind of used it as a way to explore my own experiences of carnival and experiences of women around me.
Fantastic.
But also trying to find a way to celebrate it too.
Have you been to carnival in Trinidad as well?
I haven't been to Carnival in Trinidad, and interestingly, so the play is called Juve, but it's basically, it treats Juve as as a metaphor for the activation of Carnival. So just the idea of like the kind of the smearing and the powder and the mud and everybody being equalized in that space. So there's like this anonymity that everyone can sink into, and I love the idea that like a judge could be beside a teacher, could be beside a boy down the road, and we're all equal in that space exploring the music. And it feels quite spiritual. So that's the starting place for the play. But the rest of the play kind of spends it in pretty mass, which is obviously all the feathers and like the kind of pageantry of it all. So
it's
yeah,
interesting because I was wondering if you'd kind of looked at Juve in different spaces, because obviously we have it here in London, but it's interesting because the Juve only started quite a number of years. Well, it originally started at the beginning, and then it kind of disappeared, and then it came back, and Carnival was established. Whereas in Brooklyn, and it's always been a part of the Carnival.
It's very much a staple out there, and it was a really interesting thing as well because, like I was saying, when I heard it was happening, my instinct was to go out and explore. And then the next day, even people from the Caribbean community, because where I lived in Flatbush was, you could go
the heart of it.
Exactly. You could go half a day without hearing one American accent. Like you could forget where you were, and that's why I loved it. But people saying to me, God, you've got to be so careful. It can be so dangerous at Juve. And I couldn't get my head around this idea of risk with this idea of a place that was was home for me. So yeah, it was just about looking at also the complexities of any place where human beings gather and release and express themselves, but also trying to find ways to celebrate it too. I didn't want it to be a thing tearing down Carnival, because I think Carnival is massively important and a space that I love so much.
But I suppose there's also a thing about the kind of society that it's happening in, because I think at home, I'm a Trinidadian, so at home in Trinidad, Juve, I would say, is really safe. You're out there, and I would say the same thing in London. But it's interesting that there is this kind of dynamic in the States, but then African Americans live with a kind of violent dynamic that we don't have in Trinidad, and perhaps we don't have over here as well. So I'm wondering if maybe there's a trickle down that's part of that as well, which is quite interesting. So I've never been to Juve in Brooklyn, and I spent in fact my uncle one of them used to bring out bands every year, and I spent a lot of my childhood there on Flatbush, eating roti, all of this sort of stuff. But it's interesting that dynamic is so different. So it's a great way of analyzing it as well, analyzing the society in which it takes place.
Yeah, and I think what some of the things, so particularly I started writing the play before, I think I started writing the play maybe like late 2016. So either way, the idea for the play came before Grenfell happened. And even then, there was no way to truthfully talk about Carnival without acknowledging that Carnival, in the year that I was, the play was going to be staged, or in the years following, would be taking place in the shadow of Grenfell, and what that even means. And looking at Carnival as a space that is a space of resistance. So it was birthed from oppression. But yeah, that almost being emblematic of all of the kind of oppressions that people have had to rise up against and still manage to kind of continue to push through and thrive and find ways to celebrate being here and being alive.
Because of course, Juve is a particularly part of the resistance, because all that smearing with oil and stuff was partly to mock the masters who blacked up during their mass, and also to hide your identity while you were getting involved in a little bit of revenge and badness.
Yeah, exactly that. And I feel like justice and resistance and joy, like joy being an act of resistance, were some of the themes that we definitely wanted to kind of instill in the play. And also, interestingly, the point you made about just like the difference of violence that we have to navigate in the different settings where Carnival takes place. I guess what this play was trying to hone in on is the fact that gendered acts of violence often tend to happen in any space where women dare to be kind of bearing skin and dancing and expressing themselves. And I feel like that's the common thread that you could probably find. I mean, there are different places, like back home, there is more of a culture of an understanding of the history behind Carnival. And I guess because of that, people approach this space with a bit more respect. Sometimes in this country, it can be seen as just a street party where everyone gets drunk. And I mean, that can be a part of it, and one's taking away.
I think that actually is one of the fundamental differences. In Trinidad, Carnival is part of our heritage, and it's revered. And it's interesting that you say that, because I spent most of 2016 at home, and one of the things that it really brought home to me is that these kind of like most of the year you have women that are really stush and their hair's relaxed and they're wearing like really, neat clothing and stuff. And then for Juve and on Carnival, they're half naked, winding up in the street, shaking up and carrying on. And then, the day after Carnival, they're back to like being really prim and proper. And it's really interesting that they only let themselves go at that particular time of year. It's like a coming of age or something every year. It's a really interesting dynamic.
But the word mask comes from mask, doesn't it? And it's about being able to put a mask on for 2 days and assume another identity. And whether that is, whether you look at the jabs and the baby dolls and some of those characters who came out of West Africa, or whether it's just putting on a pink cowboy hat, it's all part of the same thing.
There's also a coming of age whereby as a child, when you grow up at home, and I suppose over here as well, you go to Kiddies Carnival, you're on the periphery. And it's only when you become an adult that you can really play Juve. You can play Au Mas, and you can go out and drink and be out in the early hours of the morning. So there's something about the first Juve that I did when I was 17. It was like, I'm suddenly an adult.
You can do it. It is a coming of age thing. I was saying that, like, I think we comment on it in the play as well. Both of those things you mentioned about everybody almost bringing a heightened version of themselves to Carnival. And that being a really empowering thing that on an ordinary day where you could otherwise be kind of invisible, you dare to be seen in this space. Or if you don't want to be seen, you get to sink into the masses. So everybody finds that some way of expressing a bit of their truth there. But yeah, Carnival being a rite of passage is definitely, because my mum, she worked in a youth club just off the Harrow Road Avenues Youth Club. So
I know it well.
Yeah. So growing up, my mum used to make kids costumes for the kids float. So like I was very much the kid that was like sleeping on the speakers, me and my brother and my sister. And then the year that I got to go on my own, it felt like, wow, this is like a proper badge of honor. Like I'm allowed to go this year on my own.
I think my daughters would say exactly the same thing. You get taken to Carnival as a baby and as a young child, and then the day that you can go as a teenager on your own with your friends, you've arrived.
Exactly that.
So, Yasmin, tell us, you were in New York. You had this idea. How did you write the play? Did anyone commission you, or did you write bits of it and then send it off? How did that work?
Yeah. So I guess the idea. I don't think the idea necessarily came to me in New York. I think the experience came. And then I was working in this theatre doing engagement work. So that's basically like audience development, trying to make the theatre's conversation extend to a world outside its walls. So getting new audiences in and having post-show conversations and stuff. So I didn't actually do much writing in New York. I was just kind of feeling my way around the building. And when I came back to London, I really wanted to write. And that was that experience, or that story of Tiara Poyao and my love for Carnival and what it meant to find home away from home with other islanders, like that felt like that was a story I had to tell. So it was just about trying to find a little avenue to tell it in. And I did a scheme at Theatre 503 called the 5035. And I had to pitch a tiny, like it was like a paragraph of what this play could be. And I guess their thing was, how on earth are you going to put Carnival above a pub in a 63 seat theatre? Yeah. And that was partially why they commissioned me, because they were like, yeah, let's see how you do it. And that in itself was an interesting thing, because Carnival itself it's a street and we make it colourful and we make it a party. So I kind of had to keep revisiting that when we were making the play and finding ways to kind of rise to the creative challenges. We can't have 100 people come on stage, but we can try and use movement to create the illusion of crowds, or we can use multi-rolling to switch into the different characters that they see as they navigate the streets. So yeah, that was part of the process of crafting it. Carnival had to be treated as a character.
Fantastic. Now, I mean, that obviously has gone down very well. You've won awards. You've, been feted in the press, as they say. What's next?
What's next? So I am still working in theatre. I'm doing lots of different projects. One of the projects I'm really passionate about at the moment is one I'm doing in Bedford with the Retired Caribbean Nurses Association. And it's basically speaking to these women who have created an amazing collective. And they basically went around to loads of different institutions in Bedford and were like, what history do you hold on us? And it wasn't very much. So they got funding and they created these little boxes, which are kind of like archives of their uniforms, their experiences just of the NHS. And I spent a couple of months talking to them, and I'm writing a play for them that we're hoping we'll find a way to have it either staged or a digital reading, of just their experience in the Caribbean, and why they wanted to come to this country and the expectations of the country versus the reality, and what it means to have experienced all of that and still be here now. So it feels like a really important thing to be that close to living history and a part of documenting it. So that's super exciting.
Well, that's really timely, because you've heard of Nubian Jack and the blue plaques that they put up. He also does statues, and I was talking to him, and he said the next statue that he's looking to commission or to work on is a statue to the Caribbean, or the Black nurses. So it's interesting that you're also doing this piece of work. I'll have to make sure you two get in touch.
That would be wicked. That would be great.
Yasmin, thank you so much for talking to us. I'm pleased we got hold of you.
Yeah, finally tracked you down. You see, we always track people down and we get them.
And it turns out your mum is a great friend of Sister Carol.
Yes, and Sister Carol is a great friend of Portobello Radio, so it's all part of the same thing.
Definitely. No, it was so lovely speaking to you. I'll definitely be back.
Yeah, we really look forward to seeing your next piece of work.
We can't
wait.
Right.
Thank you so much.
You take care.
Thank you. What else could I play apart from Sandra's Juve Party?
Lovely. Yasmin Oliver, everyone.
Our hearts were set on fire, picking up the pieces from the floor. But we can't fight the change. Our hearts were set on fire, picking up the pieces from the floor. Oh, I want you to believe you know to me. Oh, I want you to believe you know to me. is different, you know. Like TRRC, so many RRPs. I guess Kulo Jamal Maborin behind that seat. On us, on we, more us to see. Iko cool Kenyami, it's like they have no heart for we. Go area council, ma for area council. Mela long corruption or member carrying inside banjul. Instead, the system or handle, system or little handle. Then you have to call Kuyatale. Woman get good example. Dokula Lukwela Jobu KC, 2,500 $2,500 Karfa Joti. Jamalaka 7 grand on Mutanaka Wallam Bosti. What I can take from some Bosti. Because no one debedo Kundila Fuefa, in another taking a Bosti. When it comes to be choosing, in another taking a Fosti. Yamola Nene, you fall the people's choice. Nima understand a foreign tell them people's voice. Yaman can noise the Tonya Kumo, embrace rejoicing. Go political, we can all mind the poison. But who kill him party tanga when you mean about caring that I'll go with someone after the Joning Kurao caring. Social overpouring, we lacking basic needs. Instead of 3-course meals, flowing you came from the feed. Try to bury we, forget they bury a seed. Try to scrutinize the names just to make the hearts bleed. What them hating when you counting profits? Cause you not to see you making profits. Nyata not to see you making progress. Nyata not to see you making success. They are more of a sharing, honey, 2 months are caring. Mina can stress, real niggas all but daring. In our trending Tonya can I book up for me of a caring Tonya for Teriatina. What a film for ever daring. Antonia Falan Dokele allow for a minute of a caring. Make so it can't call it's not different from what they're saying.
Juve party, which of course makes us feel yearning for the summer, yearning for carnival again, yearning for all that jigging about in the street and all the history and all the rum and all the marijuana.
Let's face it, we know what what you're interested in.
Yeah, I just love a good time.
You certainly do, Sunshine. You certainly do. He's nicked 2 of my beers today already. What is he like? What is he like? Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. What a fun show. What a fabulous pair of guests we just had on.
We've got loads more. We
Yeah.
have Barbara and Alex coming to talk to us about Wormwood Scrubs.
Marvellous.
We
Looking
have
forward to that one. We've got Madam
this-
Zarvis coming through. And then in the
We've got
middle
the
of it
Spit
all,
Ambassadors
we've got
ready
the
to introduce their play, which
Yeah,
is, and in fact, I can see Alexia.
Alexia online now already. Good
Online
girl.
already.
Mental. Yeah, this is a preceding their wonderful radio play that we're going to listen to at 6 p.m. tonight. Straight after this show, we're going to
The
run.
Dream.
We're going to run into the dream.
The
Yeah,
Dream,
man.
indeed.
It's going to be mental. Absolutely mental.
So, of course, I'm pleased to say, sorry, this is the serious bit, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, is it grown up?
Yeah,
grown
we're
up?
on the Grenfell inquiry, which is really getting into the hard stuff.
It gets worse every week, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a fantastic piece in The Guardian, actually, by Karim, who is, I think, the deputy chairman of Grenfell United. Karim, you may have seen him on tour with Low Key last year. He was the DJ when Low Key was doing that tour. He's written a great piece in The Guardian because in the last 10 days, we've discovered that 3 major organizations, Arconic, Kingspan, and Celotext, have all abused their tests. They've all lied through their teeth. They've all committed fraud.
Hiss.
To give the media their due, the infractions are so terrible at the moment that they're actually being reported.
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
Guardian
they
has
are
finally
actually
got
reporting
back
it.
in the game. And
Talking of which, one of us lot ought to run down there, and do some interviews right on the doorstep down there outside the
Take
inquiry.
a Taz cam down.
Yeah,
and,
exactly. It's a great idea. Let's do one of them.
No,
Let's
there's
do one of them in
there's
the
a woman
next
called
week or so.
Sally Burke, actually, who has been emailing me on a regular basis to tell me that we should be doing that. And she's
Wonderful.
right.
Great idea, Sally. Brilliant. Absolutely superb. We are on it. We are on it.
We
Absolutely
are on it. Now, we are about to talk to the peeps from Wormwood Scrubs.
Is that the coup? Mental.
That
Absolutely
is the
mental.
coup.
But before we do that, I just want to pick up on something that was mentioned very briefly by Margaret Busby, which was a controversy regarding the Sainsbury's ad. And basically, what that is that Sainsbury's have done a series of adverts with different families, and each family from a different community. And the one with the African heritage family, the black family, has raised not the kind of the heckles of all the nasty racists. And I read some of the comments that were coming out on Twitter and on Instagram, things like, oh, Christmas in Africa, or 90% of this country is white. Why have we got these black people on TV? I mean, racist after racist after racist comments. So simply because
I'm quite enjoying
They actually put
this.
out an advert that had a black family in it. It caused all this problem. It was just interesting. Like black people don't shop in
showing their
Sainsbury's.
true selves.
They really are.
Yeah, man, and I kind of like that. The COVID's really brought this out in everyone. You know, we are really absolutely.
We know who the racists are.
Sorry,
yeah, man.
there were no racists for COVID. I think you may have.
No, they were, but they weren't nearly as obvious as what they are now.
I think,
And
So
I think
that's
runs
what
with
that was
everything.
about. So
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
for
Well
all of
done.
us out there,
Well done,
shop
yeah.
in Sainsbury's.
Yeah. yeah.
Give all your money to Sainsbury's. More black people, more Sainsbury's.
You got to remember,
Right,
of course, that
wicked.
it was Sainsbury's that really got Lawrence Fox's goat when they dared to
Talk
somehow
about Black History Month.
Yeah,
Lawrence Fox, what a dickhead!
what a dickhead. That's a technical term, boys.
Indeed,
and girls.
it is.
Moving swiftly on. Here's another tune from Lovers Rock. It was the third dance tune, The Revolutionaries.
You feel you always walk alone, but you never sense who is around you. The less you speak, the silence grows. More or less will show you're not alone now. I will be a ghost. I watch you dream and wake right through, bathed in midnight blue, the sacred morning. Tears will echo every song, forgotten and so strong, the paleness after. I will be a ghost. Everybody walks amongst us. Everybody talks, but we've lost our words. We're just whisperers stuck in shadows on the wall. I know that we've all felt love, and God, I want to feel it again. Let me in. You've got to let me in. I felt a tickle, heard a laugh. We struggled in the past, but not this moment. Barely awake, but always aware. You're always there, you're always with me. Everybody walks amongst us. Everybody talks, but we've lost our words. We're just whisperers stuck in shadows on the walls. I know that we've all felt love, and God, I want to feel it again. Let me in. You've got to let me in. In the cool, cool blue. Cool, cool blue. Everybody walks amongst us. Everybody talks, but we've lost our words. We're just whisperers stuck in shadows on the walls. I know that we've all felt love, and God, I want to feel it again. Let me in. You've got to let us in. I know that we've all felt love, and God, I got to let us in. You've got to let us in. You've got to let us in. Let me in.
On the YouTube stream, which is coming from Muse Films, which you'll find, I think, on our Facebook page. Is that right? The stream? Yeah, hopefully, yes. Anyway, we're going to be talking to Jerry and Alexia from the SPID Theatre Group in a minute about their play, The Dream, which is on at 6:05, ladies and gentlemen. We're running 5 minutes late today. Hi, Alex. Yeah.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
All right, Alex, you're back. Great. Alex, now you were the first, I think, to bring us the story of what's going on at Wormwood Scrubs. Just briefly tell the folks back home what's going on at Wormwood Scrubs.
Yeah, basically HS2, as I've mentioned before, the bargain of the century. They're digging up about a fifth of the scrubs, give or take, in order to create a huge sewer system. The sewer system doesn't have to be there, by the way. It can be placed somewhere else.
Like in High Street, Kensington.
Why not? Why not? Maybe the town hall.
Indeed.
Indeed, yes. They've got the money. They've got the top civil engineers on the case, so I can't see why they have to use a common land for this. But long story short, we initially had 2 weeks' notice before they started getting the trucks in. We've had a bit of a reprieve. That's mainly because they haven't done the correct surveys, paperwork, consultations. I think we've been there before. We're luckily it's brought us until mid-January. So the problem is still there. It's just that we've got a bit of breathing space. So all I ask is that we continue signing the petition, spread the word to all the communities that use the scrubs. That's North Kent, that's Hammersmith and Fulham. That's even a little bit of Ealing as well.
My wife walks.
I just want to know that how did this happen? How is it that in 2020 a situation is arising where these people are going to basically, decimate a piece of green space like this without prior consultation and notice to residents?
Good question. We've been asking that all along. HS2 have been doing this all along the line between Birmingham and London. If you go back behind Euston Station, the Somerstown community over there, they've had this for a number of years, where they've been knocking down houses, buildings, creating roads.
In fact, HS2 have given a huge endowment to Camden, and they've set up a foundation with it because of the damage that obviously they're doing to the community in building it. But I mean, I don't think anything like that's been offered in this situation. I mean, not that we should be taking it, but nothing's been on the table.
With these things, you never know. You never know. I believe there was some cash.
Somebody's had some money, basically.
We believe so. And I'm going to put you on to my colleague here, Barbara, who knows a lot more about this, as well as the wildlife as well. Over to you, Barbara.
Yeah. I mean, HS2, whatever you think about whether it's worth it, and there are a lot of people who say, why not just put decent internet on the line that's already up there? Because it's only going to be 20 minutes faster.
Well, precisely.
For the 3 commuters that are still going to be using it, right?
Yeah.
But we're here under the Trellick Tower and someone's hammering on the door. You're here specifically to talk about the threat to Wormwood Scrubs.
Yeah.
Why can't this sewer stay where it is at the moment?
Well, what they're doing is, they've built this big HS2 interchange on the Old Oak Common, so it's a big hub. And what they're trying to do, there is already a sewer running underneath Wormwood Scrubs called the Stamford Brook Sewer. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to divert the sewer system from this new station into the Stamford Brook Sewer. And instead of trying to divert the new station sewer into a different sewer system that would take it under industrial land, they've decided to basically dig into what is actually a designated local nature reserve. There's 100 species of birds there. There's a dozen species of butterflies. We've got common lizards, which are in hibernation now. So if they start digging up right now, they are literally going to crush. We've got one of the most diverse populations of common lizards, and the very area is the stronghold of the common lizards. Is the very area that they are planning to get the diggers into. And so
they have said they'll put it back as it was, as it were, in 5 years' time. But as we all know, you can't dig up a community, whether it's a community of lizards
animals,
or a community of people.
Yeah. And we had the for meadow pipits, which are a red listed protected species.
They're the ground nesting birds. Yeah,
they nest on the ground. And Wormwood Scrubs has been the breeding place that was in closest to central London. There wasn't anywhere in central London they were breeding. And this is another area that, this latest disruption is just going to wreck any chances of those meadow pipits breeding again.
Can I ask you, because this sounds like a horror show to me. It sounds like environmental genocide. Has there been any environmental impact? What justification could there be for doing something like this?
So what they say they've done is they say that they've reviewed previous environmental surveys, but this is an area that's constantly changing and developing, and what they ought to do is, if they've detected wildlife, they should be getting licenses to approve any work that they want to do, and that's what they haven't got. They haven't got those licenses in place. They haven't got licenses for the lizards or for we think there's bats, so we've got common and soprano pipistrelle bats. We don't know if they're roosting there because there aren't surveys. So this is what we're trying to use this period when we've managed to get a bit of a delay on the start of the work. The next thing is they can't go and destroy some of these areas while animals are hibernating in the ground because they can't move them on. So we're hoping to see, can we stop this? But also in the middle of this, can we minimise or stop them coming into the nature reserve part of Wormwood Scrubs? It's a nature reserve.
Is there any legal measure or that you could take to? I don't know where you're at.
The government has given HS2. We've seen it all, as Alex was saying, we've seen it all the way up the line, that they're just wrecking into all sorts of common areas. So we'd like to think the borough's protested the way in which they're going about this. We'd love to call the decision to dig into Wormwood Scrubs into judicial review, and that's something we're exploring. We're wondering why there hasn't been more legal advice taken by the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham or by the Wormwood Scrubs Charitable Trust, who manage the place day to day. But in the meantime, we're just trying to get everybody to sign the petition, come down. We've been doing bulb plantings to get more wildflowers there as a symbolic protest. We've been going into every meeting that we can with HS2 and asking them really hard questions, about where are the ecological impact studies, because otherwise they are going to be committing wildlife crimes.
So, one question, if I may, from the point of, how come everyone's left it to this moment to suddenly, jump to the barricades about it? Is this something that has been known about for years? And
so I think they knew that. Obviously the building of Old Oak Common Station's been going on for ages, and so it's been known since 2015, 2016 that a corner of Wormwood Scrubs would be affected by the building of this station, and that they were going to try and do this sewer work, but they were talking about one small corner of the Scrubs, and then suddenly it was residents on another side of the Scrubs that were informed that their parking bays were going to be suspended in order to create access roads to that corner. They were literally just going to cut across, and then they showed us the maps, and the maps were then showing they were going to cut all the way up the wildlife area, which is the most diverse area. So suddenly we realized that what people had been told was going to happen, it was way worse than anything that they'd said, and that's what we're trying to get into.
Yeah, well, that's their modus operandi. It's the modus operandi. It happens all the time. Planners claim one thing's going to happen. We had a protest yesterday for the trees on Warnington Estate, and again, what they tell you they're going to do and what they do are completely different. Somebody pointed out that when the plans went in for Westfield, There was supposed to be social housing involved. There was supposed to be a sports center for the community. And by the time it came to be built, it all disappeared. The library they promised was half the size. These people are corrupt. And
and we're seeing all this same situation that we've seen with all these disasters that our community has been experiencing, where you've got a council that subcontracts everything, hands over the management to another body that then doesn't do its proper scrutiny. It then subcontracts cheap works, and it all goes down the line. And before you know it, you've got kind of, bulldozers coming in with contractors that nobody ever knew existed, because it's all gone, it's all subcontracted, and the people who would end up digging this stuff up have got no ecological knowledge whatsoever.
And there's no accountability either. This is the other issue. Because you subcontract and subcontract and subcontract. You subcontract away all the accountability. So everybody points. It's like Grenfell. So you point at this one and this one points at that one. And it's a way of avoiding any responsibility.
And meanwhile, the community, they say, oh, we consulted with the community, and hardly any of the community knew about it. And they talk, they had a drop-in that 5 people were allowed to attend, where they didn't answer a single question. And I've sat in a couple of those meetings, and they don't give you any answers.
So, Barbara, we need the specifics of how people can help. There's petitions, there's meetings on the scrubs. What's going on this weekend?
So on Sunday, I think it's around 2:30, there's going to be people planting bulbs.
That's over at the Acton side.
That's over, Braybrook Street corner of the scrubs.
The Harry Roberts corner.
Not quite, but nearly. And then we've got a petition, change.org/Save Our Scrubs. So please sign that.
You've got a Facebook group?
We've got a Facebook group, Save Our Scrubs. So please join that. And if you join that, you can also get a link to a WhatsApp group that if you really want to get involved, that's where we're all organising ourselves and trying to spread the word and get everybody along to meetings, and so that not a single HS2 worker can go into a meeting without somebody coming in and asking a tough question and asking them to show us the environmental impact studies that they've done.
After Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Keep us up to date with what's going on. And Isis, you have a tune.
Yeah, I thought, after what's going on, this tune by the late great Dennis Brown, Wolves and Leopards, sums up the kind of mentality that we're seeing.
They should release Wolves and Leopards on Worm Scrubs.
Indeed.
I need love to change away. We don't want your aggressiveness. We don't want to live in your stress. You may not change their life and no longer believe in the lie. The people don't want to fight alone anymore. They have right to be saved. We have a chance to change our life, and we just chance to make. And we don't need to have open times as I own. I want to believe in this world. Oh, Lord, we want.
And leopards, and we're like the sheeps and the shepherds and whatever.
I was
I
actually-
like it. I
or
like
the
it. Great.
because there's no such thing as
Great.
sheeps.
I was
They're
on
sheep.
I was on Wormwood Scrubs the other day for a panto meeting, Portobello panto meeting, and there were
He had to slip that in, didn't he?
two rather gorgeous parrots, blue
Oh.
and red parrots there, which apparently some guys flies. Yeah,
Bloke from Shepherd's Bush.
bloke from Shepherd's Bush.
Was it a Norwegian blue? Was it pushing up the daisies?
Which-
Isn't Wormwood Scrubs where you go scrumping as well? Won't you lose out on your?
No, that's Little Wormwood Scrubs.
Oh,
I
that's
go
Little Wormwood
scrumping.
Scrubs,
Yeah. Talking of characters from the past, I don't know
Oh,
if
yeah.
you noticed in Lovers Rock, the Steve McQueen show,
Uh-huh.
they had the man with the cross.
Oh, yes.
Oh, was
Who
he in
apparent-
it?
That
who apparently is a guy who was called Felix, who
Oh.
used to walk up.
I
and-
remember him.
Yeah, man. He was so well used because it was a continuous reminder of the fact that she was a church girl wearing her bestest church outfit to go to the dance in. And he kept on popping up with his cross. It was brilliant. Really, really great.
So they got
Really,
a guy
really
to
great.
play him.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
yeah,
in
man.
it. You
Yeah.
see him
Yeah,
a
I
couple
heard
of
a really
times.
interesting story about him, but I can't remember what it is now as to why he walked up and down with the cross.
Yeah, I mean, there's a.
It was Jesus, no?
no.
I reckon.
Yeah,
I
Jesus
reckon.
walked the streets of Ladbroke
Yeah,
Road.
I heard a very funny joke earlier on this week, possibly slightly offensive, but hopefully not. What's God's real name? Howard. How do you know it's Howard? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
All right, no, that's not
Right.
offensive.
Okay. Well,
Woo! There's a bit
Good.
worried there.
Very good.
that is an intro to nothing. We are delighted to introduce our old friends, because they've been on before, Jerry and Alexia from the Spear
Oh, hang on.
Theatre Group.
I wouldn't describe them as old, though, Piers.
No, they
In
are
the
young.
context
They are old
of
young
you and
friends.
myself and Greg being the interviewers.
Absolutely. Wicked. Absolutely wicked. Do we have the guys from the Spit on board?
Hey,
We do.
Alexia, I can see you there. Are you there?
Oh,
Yes.
wow. Yes.
Fantastic. And
Nice.
Jerry, you're there too.
Yes. Greetings.
Hey, how you doing? Now, guys, last time we had you on, you were about to perform your radio play about the Mangrove 9, which obviously in the subsequent 4 weeks, everyone's kind of got to know who the Mangrove 9 were. How did the performance go?
Yeah, it was great. Just like sitting there and hearing it for like the literally first time, the whole thing, and like seeing what we have delivered over the past couple of weeks and what we have been working towards was amazing. So yeah, it was really great.
So tell us, guys, what was the angle you took on the story?
Well, it was a very, for me anyways, the approach I took, and it was a very, I was open to be educated and enlightened, you know. I already had some knowledge about the Mangrove 9, but when I got the opportunity to actually be a part of the story, it made me even more inclined to want to learn about it. So the whole thing, even though I was performing in it, I was actually being taught myself about what was going on, because we covered Mangrove 9, Race Relations Acts, and also the British Black Panthers. So there was a lot of content that we covered, although it was mainly predominantly based on the Mangrove 9. So yeah, it was a very educational one for me.
Now, remind us, what characters do you two play in your version, The Dream, which is on at the end of this show? You can listen to the play, Boys and Girls. Sorry, Jerry. What?
I played Jennifer Delvin's friend.
And I played Delvin, who is the guy that goes through.
Oh, we lost Jerry there. Alexia, tell us who Delvin is.
Pardon?
Alexia, we just lost Jerry there. So tell us who is Delvin?
Delvin is a British black young man within the play, and his parents are from a Trinidadian descent, and his parents came from Trinidad and came to Britain, and Delvin's like in his family he's the firstborn British guy, and then he's gone on a journey where he faced police brutality and learned about himself, but also where his culture and where how that happened and how it grows, and the Black Power movement and the importance of it. So yeah.
So Jerry, I think you're back with us.
Yeah, just connected.
So Delvin is he a customer at the Mangrove?
Well, he's more than that. He is a regular customer, but there's a lot more to that. He's like Alexa. I heard Alexa was articulating it. He's our second descendant generation from the West Indies, you know, and he's like the epitome of a boy who's torn between two worlds. So what he identifies with is conflict in who he truly is. Do you get what I'm saying? So throughout the whole story, the story basically unpacks the conflicts that he has to face as a young black male in London during the early 70s, late 60s, you know. And the Mangrove is like a hub, it's like a main hub within the African Caribbean community where they all come and meet up and mobilize, you know. And yeah, Delvin is definitely, you could say, a regular customer there because he has a lot of ties with the regular people who are there.
So it's Delvin. It represents that coming of age. I think they call it the first generation of people of African heritage who were born in this country, whose parents had come from the Caribbean and had to face the kind of hostile environment as it was. We don't call it now, but the hostile environment that they faced when they arrived. And I suppose the dichotomy was that for those people, they were born in this country, and so this is supposedly their home, and yet they were being told, "Go back home. You don't belong here." Being alienated, and like you said, it's that kind of where do I belong?
Exactly, yeah. And I feel like it's very I for one identify with that because I was born in Sweden, right, before I moved to England. But I'm Ghanaian and Ugandan. But there's always, I feel like for the black diaspora in the Western world, we kind of have our own subculture. Even though we come from the motherland, we're not psychologically connected to the motherland because we weren't born there. But where we live, we're not necessarily accepted because we do suffer oppression. So then we have to create our own world, basically, and create our own realms. And I feel like this is something that Delvin has to kind of experience right in his face. Do you get what I'm saying? Because he thinks he's British. He speaks like your average British young white male. But through oppression, through vivid oppression, he realizes that it's not that. And his older generation, so his parents and, you know, his uncles and aunties are trying to basically educate him and tell him about who he truly is. But those who can't hear must feel. And this is something that definitely he had to go through.
Is there any sense, because for me, I'm born in Trinidad and I kind of came here when I was a child, but I know, like with my ex-husband, who was similar to Delvin and to many other my children born here, people of African heritage, it's this sort of idea as well about feeling, because, you know, the Mangrove is very much about resistance. It's about that fight against racism. And for the generations of people who came here from the Caribbean, from West Africa, for anywhere else, and migrated here, there was also a sense of feeling that they didn't quite have a right. They didn't have agency to have to kind of lead a fight back often against what was going on. And then their children came up and they were very revolutionary. There was the like you said, the Black Power movement. People were looking at what was going on in the States, and there was much more of a revolutionary energy. Is that sort of anything, or does that play into the sort of the way that you've framed your story?
Well, Alexa, do you want to talk about that before? That's quite. Go on. I feel like I've talked too much and just giving you the space.
What was the question?
Well, it was whether within the story that you're telling, you've kind of framed that revolutionary element that was very present in the children, or as they were then, the young people who'd been born in this country of African heritage, of African Caribbean heritage, but yet were alienated and facing discrimination and racism. The kind of you know, there was a difference in the way they reacted and how they dealt with it to their parents who had migrated here.
Yeah, I have to like definitely agree with that, because even that those stuff, I was talking to my friends about it, and we Black British people, I wasn't exactly born here, but my friends was actually born in Britain, and the fact that they can't even say they're English, but they have to say they're British because of their skin color. But somebody in their country, like say South Africa, a white person may come from Britain to South Africa and then say, oh, they're South African, but we can't identify with ourselves being English, is really wrong. And I feel like us living here is like, in the racist eyes, we don't belong here. We're just here to help the country, and we never belong here. And we have to continuously fight with that. And even like, we don't feel like we belong. We're constantly alienated in Britain, and I don't think British people actually like realize it as much. So I feel like it still goes on today, and it still happens, and it really frustrates me sometimes.
I think that's a really, really astute point that you've made, and it's something that I often raise because, again, as somebody who migrated here, I'm very clear. I'm not British. I'm not English. It's not my country. I just live here. But my daughters were born here, and it's occurred to me exactly as you said. Why is it that people that look like us, people of African heritage, Africans, I'm a Pan-Africanist, so I just say Africans. Why is it that we can only be British and not English? To me, it's a veiled way of being racist and of dividing people, because actually, if you're born in this country and your parents are born here, regardless of the color of your skin and your racial background, you're technically English, are you not? So again, it's a very interesting point that you raise.
Yeah, 100%. And just to add to that as well, I feel like, for me, like I was telling you where I was born in Scandinavia, and my nationality with my passport is Swedish. So technically speaking, I'm Swedish. But that's the last thing I identify myself with. If you look at me, that would not cross your mind. I identify myself as an African. So my point is basically what the individual themselves align their values and their identity with. Do you get what I'm saying? And then going back to the question about the revolutionary element within the show, I feel like the Mangrove 9 itself, the entire trial was a revolution in itself. Do you get what I'm saying? So that was the entire theme. And the youth have always been the energy of revolutions. If we look in history and we look now, it's always the youth. You know, we have the elders as the wisdom who are telling the youth what to do.
Well,
and then the youth are
the foot soldiers. And in fact, if we look at people like Sankara, and if we look at Malcolm X, and if we look at the Black Panthers, you know, little Bobby, what's his name? Seal, and all these people, they were actually really young people at the vanguard of this movement. So it's a really important point that you make.
Yeah, exactly. So with Delvin and his friends, they were involved because they were actively, without saying too much, you guys have to go and check it out. It's on decolonizingthearchive.com/the dream, with a dash in between the dream. But my point being, with the characters, with the youth within the show and their involvement within the revolutionary movement, they are present. I will say that they're very present and they know what's going on. But I feel like for them, themselves, and the approach and the attitudes that they have, it's a very coming of age type of attitude that they're taking. Mind you, though, a lot of the characters have different approaches to it. So Delvin, for example, everything's a learning curve for him. Do you get what I'm saying? Like the story's focused on him. Do you get what I'm saying? And I feel like how I had to play Delvin, I kind of have to put my mind into the mentality of this is a brand new experience. Do you get what I'm saying? Like being a part of the Mangrove protests and stuff like that. He was actively there. I feel like his approach was very not passive, but very like he's just present. And I'm really not trying to say too much. I want you guys to check it out.
Can I ask you though? I have to throw this in. I think this is really important. What about the role of women? Have you spotlighted that? Because one of the things that we know for the Mangrove is people like Sister Althea LeConte Jones and also Sister Barbara Beast. You know, these were sisters who were very powerful. They were very much in the leadership role. And often when we look at the story of our story as African people collectively, we don't see the women's having prominence, and their voices aren't always heard in the same way that men's voices are heard. So how have you looked at that? Have you considered that in your portrayal of that story?
Personally, for me, when I was given the character of like Jennifer, at first I didn't really look at the background until I can't remember who, but they asked me the question about like, who is Jennifer? Have you looked more into the story? Have you actually looked about what the females have done within the Mangrove 9 and the movement and what they have done? So then after doing some research, I was like, they are very powerful, and women are seen as non-powerful, and it really just frustrates you because like we are very powerful. And one thing I love about women is like when I was looking back in the past is that they may not be the front cover because usually the men's are the front, but women can be behind and telling the men what to say and telling them what to do, and it can be very powerful because they tell them, no, you're in the wrong, no, you need to say this, you need to say that, and putting that power and putting that strength into my character, I was like, yeah, we need to be heard, we need to be said. As much as it's about Delvin, it's about a community, both girls and females, and we have equal power, and that's what we were trying to portray within the radio play.
Excellent.
Yeah. And I feel like the Mangrove, the trialists themselves, Barbara Breeze and Alfie Lacointe, literally broke the stereotype of this, you know, of women being subordinate. Do you get what I'm saying? Because these are two very iconic individuals, and we all know them from the Mangrove. Do you get what I'm saying? So I feel like they themselves single-handedly just destroyed that misconception. Do you get what I'm saying? And you see that prevalently within the radio show as well. Women are naturally synonymous to men within the Black struggle. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, it goes hand in hand. We need each other here. It's not just one gender. Like, it's always been a combination of both. Do you get what I'm saying?
And historically as well. I mean, you mentioned your African from the continent heritage, but as you know, on the African continent, women play a huge role in the family, and there's always an elder auntie or a mother or a granny who's the kind of head of the family in the sense of, you know, making decisions and stuff. So it's part of our heritage as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it takes a village to raise a child. You get what I'm saying? So you need to include all members within there, regardless of their gender.
Definitely.
Guys, we can't wait to hear the play, which is going to be at 6:05. Just tell us a tiny bit about the opening scenes. Just tell us, give people a flavour of what they're going to hear.
Yeah, and make sure it's a teaser and not a spoiler.
Yeah.
Well, without spoiling it, I'll tease you with saying it sets the tone, you know, it sets the tone. The beginning, you know, you really get, from the first, I would say 5 minutes, you really get a sense of the environment that you're about to enter, you know, and the atmosphere and the type of culture that you're entering, you know. And the beginning of the radio show is like the foundation, which allows the rest to happen. Do you get what I'm saying? And you really get the gist of that. I'll say that. And it's on decolonizingthearchives.com/the dream, put a dash in between the dream. And yeah, it's there right now. It's broken up into two parts, if I'm not mistaken, 2 parts, and you can watch it right now. It's on there now.
Yeah, and you can listen to it after this show and once again at midday on Sunday. Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah.
Thanks, Alexia.
Great to meet you both. Love your energy. Keep it up.
What are you, guys? Just before you go, what are you doing at the moment, Alexia? Are you working on something now?
I'm currently at school, but now that you mentioned it, I was talking to one of my teachers because of the experience of this Black History Month and also doing this dream. I spoke to my teacher about creating a community where everyone can feel accepted and talk about their things that they experience within school, like discrimination, racism by the teachers, all these stuff. And then the teachers actually said, yes, I'm going to create this community students to help support each other and not keep on fighting each other, because I noticed teachers are the reasons why we keep on fighting each other, coming as a community and actually becoming more stronger and powerful together.
Great. Well, I hope you come and talk to us about that when you get it set up. And Jerry, what are you up to, mate?
Yeah, so besides my performing creative arts field, I'm also very active within the community, within the Black community, you know, trying to do a lot of activism work there. Currently working with DTA, Decolonizing the Archives, BCA, Black Culture Archives. And I'm also a youth officer for GAC UK, which is the Global African Congress, a Pan-African movement, which is focused on getting reparations for the continent. So if there's any you want reparations for the motherland, please. That is.
Yeah, I'm the ex-information officer for GAC UK. So hail up.
Sorry.
I'm the ex-information officer for GAC UK.
Amazing. We're gonna need to connect after this then. But also just still a part of Spid Theatre as well. You know, we're really focused on doing a lot of online stuff. You know, we work with a lot of creatives, and you know, with the circumstances going on now, a lot of the things are virtual. And yeah, so and if you want to keep up with me, my name is Jerry Artiste on Instagram. That's Jerry Artiste, JERRYARTISTE.
Yeah, we're going to keep up with
Excellent.
you, Jerry. That's
Amazing.
for sure.
Big up both Alexia and Jerry. What incredibly learned younglings.
Yeah.
Love this.
Well, we'll have to get you back on, Jerry, specifically to talk about reparations.
Yeah.
And big
brilliant.
up to Spid. Big up to Spid. Spid are actually putting out a call at the moment for any creative work of any young people. I think it's 11 to 25 in any medium. We'll put that up on our website.
That's the Spid.
Thank you, guys.
Spid Theatre Company.
Stay tuned for another
show. You get the chance to listen to that radio play that we've been. Brilliant. Absolutely
fantastic.
superb.
Looks like we've got some snowflakes on board.
Oi, oi, oi.
Just time for this.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Jerry.
I've been a little restless, thinking of your kisses. I wanna feel your power. Come and help me undress. Get our bodies caressed. Feel with your touch. Feel with your love. Feel with your touch. You got a little something special, little something. You got a little something special, little something. I've been a little restless, thinking of the distance. I wanna feel your power. Come and help me embrace. Get our bodies caressed. You got a little something special, little something. You got a little something special, little something. You got a little something special, little something. You got a little something special, little something.
it's fun to pass in circles. You help to mend the damaged threads in me. Although we said some words I know were hurtful, you disagree with me just to agree. If only you could feel the fun every time you're with me. All your dreams become true. Gets you high, gets you through. If only you could.
It's Portobello Radio. That is on in about 10 minutes' time.
Excellent.
Thank you to Jerry and Alexia for being on the show. So last week, ladies and gentlemen, we are here underneath the trellis. We are borrowing our internet from the Goldfinger factory 2 doors down. Thank you, Goldfinger. We had the explanation, I think, from Kim Taylor-Smith about why Goldfinger is the Bond villain last week.
Yes, he explained the whole story.
He did indeed. And you will also have met Maya Sambo. Hi, Maya. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm well. How are you?
Good. Who told us about the Snowflake project. And you're here with Amy.
Hi there.
And you're going to tell us a tiny bit more.
Yes, so the project is all about giving to the community, and we've got artists coming from all around London donating their time and their talent to these snowflakes that are made of ceramic and are going to be auctioned next week to raise money for our kitchen that is delivering meals to the community as well as doorstep chats. And we're really excited about the snowflakes that have just started to arrive today. We've got a selection of gorgeous artworks that have just arrived, which just started to photograph. And Amy is here today to talk about her snowflakes and how she's made them and why and her process. And
That's fantastic because I think, if I'm not much mistaken, the original snowflakes are cutouts from a project that Goldfinger did this Christmas or last Christmas with whistles. And so you have ended up with these cutouts. So tell us, Amy, what have you done with your cutouts?
Very good question. So I describe myself as a conceptual artist, which means I normally start with the idea. And most of my work tries to tackle social inequalities or other global challenges like climate change.
Mm-hmm.
And so I gave myself a very tough brief of thinking, if this is going to charity, then we really shouldn't be spending money on the snowflakes, because therefore, why not just donate the money? And I started rummaging around my house thinking, what on earth am I going to use to make these snowflakes? My first snowflake is all about climate change. So I found some milliput, which I used to fix a crack in the sink and started to make it melt. And then the other snowflake is all about socio-economic equality and is called Unique is Beautiful, because if you don't know, all snowflakes are unique and they are all beautiful and perfect, just like us.
Absolutely. Do you know how can people bid for the snowflakes? Because you're raising money for meals for the vulnerable, and you obviously actually
There's
want
an
people,
auction.
you want people to dip into their pocket. How are they going to get on board with the auction?
so they start at £15 and go up, and some of them will go up to large amounts, and some of them will just go on an adventure. And they're starting bidding on Saturday next week, and they end bidding following Sunday. So yeah, in a week's time, we will on Goldfinger Design website.
Which is what?
Goldfinger.design. They've just launched a new website actually yesterday.
Oh, they have. Fantastic.
Yeah.
We didn't know that. The internet must be a bit slow coming in from there.
We've been struggling with your internet.
Thank you so much, ladies, for coming in and telling us all about that. I hope you'll let us know how much money you raised.
We will. We'll be shouting about it.
Great. From the top of the
From the top of the tower, we'll
Yeah.
go out and say, we have raised this money for you. And it's been a really lovely experience, actually, as curator for it, to bring together artists from all around the town who have really donated so willingly and openly their time during lockdown. So it's going to be such a nice feeling of community when we've been all separate. And it's been really heartwarming for everybody.
Fantastic. And we look forward to all being out. By this time next Friday, we should all be out running free.
Born free.
Born free. Last week we played Shirley Bassey's Goldfinger. This is the Propeller Heads remix. It's hydration hour. At 3 o'clock, we have Ben Shuckburgh, Roots in the Grove. At 4, we have DBC coming live from Lalo FM. At 5, we have Cabs coming live from Lalo FM. At 6, we got Edie's Dirt Bike Dub. 7, at Lucy Temple, 40-something disco. At 8, we've got D-Check. And at 9, we got Bands' selection, DJ Koshi, which is a garage spectacular. Thanks for listening. This has been Portobello Radio.
He's the man.
Look into the sky, know how much I miss you. Monday morning. When I'm blue and tearful, look into the sky, know how much I miss you.
Superb.
And it's such a small world because Jerry's a member of the GAC UK, which I was a member of, and like I said, he's an officer, and I was an officer up until a couple of years ago.
Wow,
So
you're both
there you go.
both very deep souls. I like this. Brilliant.
Well, reparations.
Absolutely
Got to get reparations for our ancestors.
I would like to think
absolutely.
that Pan-Africanism was a whole wide world, not a small world.
It should be. It's a huge world.
It's a
Africa's
big
the largest
world out there.
continent in the world.
Hi, Miss Molly.
Ah, Molly Deneen has just turned up. Hello, darling.
I
Brilliant.
went through
Absolutely brilliant.
Saturday sessions. for
Did,
the folks
yeah, you
back
did.
home.
You completely stole my thunder, you cheeky sausage. But brilliant, absolutely brilliant. What an amazing lineup we've got for Saturday. So, guys and girls, get in tune. PortobelloRadio.com tomorrow, starting at midday with a repeat of this show if you missed any of it, followed by the most fantastic DJs that Piers was rabbiting on about while I was otherwise
And then
occupied.
Sunday morning, you can hear this show again at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. We're going to go early doors.
And then
early
Spitter on
doors.
that does mean that if you want to hear Flipside with the guy from the 12 part,
Yeah.
you're going to have to go to the Mixcloud, aren't you?
Certainly are. Certainly
How do people
are.
do that,
Brilliant.
Greg?
They go to www.mixcloud.com/Portobello_radio. Otherwise, just type in the little search engine thingy there about Portobello Radio.
Mixcloud.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And so,
Superb.
who's on your show tomorrow?
So tomorrow, if you decide you're bored of Portobello Radio and you want a break between 4 and 6, you can tune in to me, the Eclectic Goddess, as I'm known, on
Brilliant.
the Feferity Radio Speak the Truth show. And of course,
Tell
my
us-
guest.
Tell us again, what radio?
Feferity Radio.
Feferity.
Yeah, it's a Yoruba word. It kind of means like
Ah.
style and vibe, you know. And
Cool.
my guest for 1 hour is Margaret Busby from 4:30 to 5:30. So I'm going to have a much
Brilliant.
longer conversation with her.
Good.
More kind of geared towards sort of it's a Pan-African program, so it's kind of taking that perspective rather than
We were on a literary tip today, weren't
Brilliant.
we?
We certainly
were all
were.
about publishing.
It was about
It
publishing.
will be, but I'm going to
was
talk a
about
bit
writing,
more about
it was acting.
decolonizing publishing actually with
Yeah.
her. Go into that a little bit more, and
Yeah,
a bit
why
more
not?
about daughters and new daughters of Africa. So
Yeah, man. Beautiful. Absolutely
Fantastic.
beautiful. Thank you, guys and girls,
Thank
for
you
everything.
guys for listening.
Yeah, man. It's been such fun. Such fun. We'll see you guys on this show. Same time, very different place. It's always a different place.
Next
with
Friday.
us,
Yeah,
but
we say
next
goodbye to
Friday.
Goulburn Road.
Yeah,
the Portobello Radio tour.
They're turning this gaff that we're in at the moment, number 9 Goulburn Road, into a Whole Food store
Yeah.
of
It's going
some
to be
kind or
called
another.
Trellick Health Collective.
There you
With
go.
great heritage,
There you
because,
go.
of course,
which is probably something
from
you will
the
remember.
from the
more
stable
so.
from the stable of Whole Foods and Series on Portobello Road, right next to the Muse Gallery.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Love it, love it, love it. Love you guys. Thank you for joining us.
Oh,
Thank
and
you,
while we're on the topic, Damien.
Damien from the Muse Gallery.
Marina's show at the Muse Gallery. Can people go and see that next week? They can from Thursday. From next Thursday. Marina, again, a lady, you didn't see how colourful she was because you didn't see her on the Zoom, but she came to talk to us 2
Her
weeks
art's
ago.
amazing, I have to say, and it's
Yeah,
so
man.
bright. and-
Good fun. It's good
yeah.
fun art and
Yeah.
very, again, really deep. Really, really deep. Love it. Absolutely love it. Brilliant. Thank you, Damien. Thank you. The Muse Gallery, that's 269 Portobello Road, will be open again post-lockdown, otherwise known as this coming Thursday.
And apparently, we have to thank Dinny Kennedy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Our studio manager.
I don't know why. I don't know why we'd want to
We've
do
run
such a
over,
thing.
We've run
I
over. There are
mean,
people.
have no idea
there are
why.
people tuning in for the show.
Yay.
For the ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
We're about to go, and you will.
Hopefully.
You'll find the Dream coming on next. The Spit Theatre Group production. starring Jerry and Alexia.
Nice.
PortobelloRadio.com. Tune in when you get the chance.
My name's Jenny Bellstar, and you are listening to. When I'm blue and tearful, look into the sky, know how much I miss you. When I'm blue and tearful, I know how much I miss you.